I'm really glad to have my friend Misti on the show with us today.
Hello. Thank you so much, Alice, for asking me to join in. We do have fun conversations, and we definitely hit on a lot of great points, especially being women who travel and women who train, in certain systems that we do. And yeah, so it's pretty awesome. I'm really excited about it. Thank you.
Prior to this meeting, we wrote down like a lot of things to talk about, and then we just sort of like ad-libbed off. So I'm not really sure where we're going to be going today. But let's start with maybe how you got into like combatives and what was like life like before that. Yeah.
Full disclosure, I'm in my early to mid 40s. So later in life, I started training more seriously and taking it more seriously. I've had my ups and downs throughout the years. I've always been involved in some sort of full contact sport or some sort of martial arts training to some degree. I was a dabbler. I was a dabbler. I was the person for so many years that was just so busy with everything that I would pop into a class and be like, oh yeah, I fucking got this, man. Like I went to one class this month and I got it. It's good. I know what I'm doing. I know how to kick that person in the nuts, like that was my thing. It's like, but it was, it really didn't do a whole lot. And so it didn't retain, but I was that person. It's what I did. I went and just kind of skipped around, and I would join something for a month or two and then, think life would happen and I wouldn't go back. So fast forward many, many years later, I started taking things a lot more serious once my life settled down. I used to be a performer and used to do a lot of team sports, and I used to travel a lot. So when I moved out here to Pennsylvania, I had a lot of lifestyle changes. And so that's when I was able to start taking things more serious and digging in. There was a period that I had with healing. I had a big healing process that I went through, and that allowed me to make the time for myself. So I would say I started taking things more seriously with training. Gosh, I had three times that I tried to do jujitsu. I'm not even kidding. And I started taking jujitsu seriously in 2018. So I haven't looked back from that. Still training constantly. Filipino martial arts before, a little bit before jujitsu, and then with Libre night fighting. Libre Fighting Guild, around that time too, around 2018, 2019. So all of those things I've been taking seriously since around that time. Yeah.
How did you find your teachers?
Oh, okay. That's a really good question. So with Filipino martial arts, I was on a Facebook hiking group. And it was people who went around and hiked in Pennsylvania. And then I became friends with one of my teachers then. And then, he started mentioning Filipino martial arts and Eskrima, and that I should come and check out, and train sometime. And so I did. And then I never looked back. Jiu-jitsu, where I train out for jiu-jitsu is the Team Henzo Gracie School. And so it just offered the I would say the best variety of classes at the time. And I actually started strength training there before I started doing jujitsu. And I was doing the circuits because I went through a weight loss period. I had gained a lot of weight over the course of a few years due to a lot of depression, to be perfectly honest with you. And, like I said, lifestyle changes. So I went through a period of time where I had to kind of rebuild myself. So then I just started training there with jujitsu at that time. And then with Libre, my FMA teacher was training with that. And so that's how I was introduced to that.
Have you used any of the things that you trained, like in the real world? Such a bro question.
That is a good question. Situational awareness is a big thing for me. So I've actually used pepper spray on somebody. It was many years ago, and it caused a big rift in a friendship of mine at the time. This is several years back, but I did actually have to use pepper spray as a means of self-defense when I felt threatened by someone who was advancing towards me. And I have been pepper sprayed. I've been pepper gelled for a test. Sorry, you can hear my cat. Hi, Keely. I wait. So the pepper gel was during the time in 2020 where the pandemic's happening. There's a lot of riots going on, with some civil unrest. And so my teacher for Eskrima, in one of our tests, we have to be pepper gelled. And then we have a series of things that we have to do during the test. So he gave the option to be pepper gelled at that time. And then do that portion of the test. And then you don't have to do it once you get to that level. So, of course, during that time, I wanted to be prepared for anything that happened, especially like during any riots or anything that could arise. So, signed right up, and holy crap, it's not fun. But now I feel confident that I can keep my eyes open during any sort of conflict where there may be pepper spray or gel or any sort of blowback. I know what to expect. So
Was he training you guys just in case you got caught up in the riots, or how,
it
like,
was
or
an option, yeah, just in case it was happening during that time.
because you mentioned that you trained like kind of sporadically throughout your life. What brought you to, I mean, was it like a mental aspect that brought you to continue to train like seriously? What was it that, like, got you to do this, sort of like this is like your life now?
Yeah, right. I know, it's every day. Yeah, it includes work and everything, right? So
Yeah.
what got me to that point was building my own confidence and realizing that I needed to basically just put up or shut up. And clearing my schedule and making it a priority for myself. My health and safety wasn't necessarily a priority for me for many years because I was on kind of a self-destructive path for a while in my life due to some trauma. And then that's why I had always been seeking self-defense opportunities and full contact sports and all those kinds of things, because it was a way for me to learn how to feel safe, but I just didn't know how to get there. So it was baby steps, and I'm happy that I did. That's I was go big or go home, because I know I'm the type of person that I have to be all in. I have to be all in, otherwise it's not a priority.
So how did it change? Like, what were you like before training versus now?
By the way, this ghost is amazing. Is amazing. What was I like before and after? So before this round, so before this life, I was a miserable sack of shit for a while, to be perfectly honest with you. I was depressed. I gained a lot of weight. I was, shoot, I think it was 267 pounds. That was when I did weigh myself, when I became comfortable with actually weighing myself. That was the highest recorded weight that I know of. I'm sure it went higher than that at some point. I went through a lot of healing things through, a messy divorce and having a child and moving and restarting my life over again. And so I wasn't in a very good place. But I wanted to make sure that when I cleaned my slate the last time, that I was not going to turn back. I wanted to feel healthy and strong for myself and for my family, because it's like, if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else, right? And so that was a big thing, where I didn't want to become like, rest in peace to my mom, but it was a big thing for me when I was younger, when she would drink. I would always say, why don't you just quit? If you love us, you would quit because we love you. I don't like seeing you sick. I don't like seeing you like that.
Yeah.
We can do this. We can do this together. And she always chose the addiction over anybody else. So she didn't choose herself. She chose the addiction. And so by her not choosing herself, she wasn't able to also choose, family. I made the choice for myself to choose me. And because I come first, my family and everybody does too, and those I care about. But if I don't come first, there's no way I can show up for them.
Was that when you found like your religion too, or I
What's
mean,
that?
did it all, was that when you found religion too? Like, did it all just happen at once?
Religion?
Yeah. Well,
What do
I
you mean?
mean, because you're is it pagan? I don't know like what the term is.
I'm just
A
a
cult.
heretic. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say other than I follow a crooked path. I work with both hands, you know. That's me. Right and wrong, it's all there.
No,
Um,
don't we all though? Like,
yeah, right. That's just me. Like with as far as spirituality and everything,
yeah,
everything goes in life. You just kind of I just walk that path, and come what may.
yeah. So I think that it's interesting because I kind of grew up always as sort of like the nice person. And it was like it was through training that I realized I was able to see like my self defense side and kind of I had to grapple with like what that meant for me because I'd grown up always thinking that being aggressive was like a bad thing. The training was what helped me find my strength and helped me see that aggression is not necessarily a bad thing. It depends on the context of the use of it.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, and you have brothers, right?
So I grew up around a lot of boys. For some reason, like so I grew up like in an Asian community in LA. And all of the families, whenever we got together, like for church or for some other, holiday or something like that, it was mostly like me and like a bunch of boys. And they were always like older than me. I was always the only girl. And so like that was kind of how I learned how to play rough. And I still have like trauma of when a girl was there, another girl was there, I would play a little bit too rough and then I'd always get in trouble. So like I'm still like battling with like every time I accidentally land a hit and when I train, I'm still like apologizing because in the back of my head there's this trigger of like I'm gonna get in trouble. like
No, I
um
get it. I
yeah.
totally get that. Like for me, it was a little bit of like my dad always wanted me to be rough. So I find it not amusing, but I find it kind of interesting that there are so many G10 tools out, in the combatives community and EDC, carriers and all that. There's so many like pens and Sharpies and things like that going around. When I was younger, my father used to say, always carry a pen with you. You never
Mhm.
know when something's going to happen. So it was always pressured on me to fight and have angst in me and be angry and all that kind of stuff all the time and to trust nobody, right? And I would always have a pen with me and always have this, I'd always have that. And then now there's all these pens everywhere. I see them everywhere. And I'm like, this is so weird. My dad was not wrong. My dad was, I grew up in a really dysfunctional, house when I was younger. And my father was away a lot too. And so that didn't necessarily help anything. But there were a lot of ups and downs. So my father always wanted me to be on my toes and be prepared. And, and I was expected to not show weakness and expected to not do those kinds of things, but I was always put into compromising positions. And so that made it really difficult to navigate through life because you become conditioned to abuse, if that makes any
Mm.
sense. So when you like, which led to some, life difficulties later on going through relationships and things of that nature. Being yelled at or anything like that, or, you take that as something like, oh, that's just how it is, because you're conditioned to take on that abuse and that it's a normal thing. And so that like created a lot of issues for me later on because I'm like, if I go, then I'm giving up on the relationship. I'm giving up on this. I'm giving up on that. And that includes family too. But when, as I got older, I realized that's not the way things are supposed to be. It's great to be tough and all that kind of stuff, but you also have to have like that side where you reel it in. I feel like my dad raised me more like a tomboy more than anything, just to be prepared for stuff all the time. So I never wanted to, back down, when a fight would happen, like, in a nightclub or something like that. If somebody came and approached me, I've been in a lot of fights and that's not really a good thing, you know? I remember fighting a lot and growing up and fighting and just never backing down, even in elementary school. And that's not a good thing because I became conditioned to that as well.
Were you a daddy's girl?
That's a good question. Yes and no. I mean, like I was saying, like he wasn't around a whole lot, but I
Yeah.
definitely gelled more with my dad.
Yeah.
And I was with him a lot more than I was my mom. My mother was constantly, working all the time, and I totally get it. I'm working all the time too. But my father, when he was around, we would go on car trips. We'd go on so many things because a lot of the times he was trying to get away from my mother being under the influence of alcohol. It was not a pleasant thing to be around. So a lot of times my father would just be like, "Hey, you're going to come with me and we're going to go for a car ride." And
Yeah.
sometimes that car ride would last all night, and that was the thing. So I had a lot of bonding time with my dad and just like, and talking and whatever and just hanging out. Like, even it was like if he was going to do work or anything like that, um, he would always even leave and again I told you it was very dysfunctional, but he would leave his work van out in the yard. And so if he was away, like out of town or away for the day for work, I if my mother and I were, arguing or anything, I always knew I had a safe place to go, and that was the work van. So when you say daddy's girl, or if I was like whatever, yeah, yeah, but it was kind of weird too at the same time because it wasn't like your typical kind of
It did. Yeah.
daddy girl thing. Yeah.
It was like a parent trying to protect you from the other parent or something, which I
Yeah,
I actually can
exactly.
relate to.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very much like that. And it's so we became close in that way because, my father, he was trying to protect me, but at the same time he was adding to a lot of the issues as well. So it's but I'll tell you now though, Alice, like my father and I are super close. And he's an excellent grandfather to, to my kids, and he's just fun to be around. And he's cleaned up his act and he's become a really cool dad. And I really appreciate having him in my life, for this cycle around. He's built his life in a whole different way. And it's really awesome to be included in that because it was very different then, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm even a daddy's girl now.
So, do you have words for like how your dad might have raised you to both be strong and also be what he considered to be feminine? Because I always had that weird, like, my dad wanted me to be able to defend myself, but when he actually saw that strength come out of me, he was like, "What are you doing?" Like,
Yeah, that's a good point to touch. I honestly don't know. Here's my dad. He'll tell me all the time, you know, don't trust those. He used to tell me, don't trust vaccines, don't trust medications. You got to be strong and, and tough it out. And if you have a cold, you just get right back up in there and you get yourself up on those feet and you face the day. Then when came to, I'm almost positive I had COVID at this time. It was right around the time before the whole shit hit the fan in 2020. And I was traveling a ton for work, on planes. I was going all over the place for quite a while there at the beginning of the end of 2019 and beginning of 2020. It was in late January and I was sick as heck. I was so sick. It was like the sickest I had ever been. My dad, he's like, "Did you get your flu shot?" On the phone. I said, "No, I didn't." "What the fuck?" "You're gonna die. It's all your fault. You didn't get that." What the heck? He started yelling at me. He started yelling at me because I didn't get the flu shot. And here I was, like, on my deathbed.
that's so funny. It's like your parents almost sound Asian in a way to me.
It's very much damned if I do and damned if I don't. So he brags about how proud of me he is that, that I, do all this stuff and that I'm very active. And then by the same token, he gets pissed off if I'm at the gym or I'm training, or I might be going out of town for a seminar or whatever it may be, just because he doesn't get that time. So when it comes to when his time is compromised, then 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 I'm damned. So
Yeah.
I just talked about my trauma the whole time. I'm so sorry, Alice.
You're sharing something that I think a lot more people can relate to than you think. So I think it's helpful because I feel like there's a lot of maybe resistance among women, at least when I've done my self-defense seminars. There is some resistance for women who want to learn and defend themselves and yet are intimidated, and I don't necessarily understand why. I mean, obviously, like your dad raised you with a more like defensive mindset, and so did mine. Something I'm
Yeah.
trying to dig into.
Yeah, same here. And and I think like I posted something on my social media the other day. Sometimes I get, criticized, like, and I'm not sure if you do either. It's like, especially like with blade work, right? So people see you stabbing a bob like 50 times. They'll say, "Oh, you're just gonna murder him. You're doing this, like you're training to be a murderer," or things like that. It's like, actually, no, I'm not. I'm training for accuracy and all these things because my personal thing, other than my dad, trying to raise me to be more defensive and alert, we are kind of conditioned to give in.
Hmm.
Growing up in the 80s and the 90s, it was still very much, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. And, if, I'm going to get married and I'm going to cook the dinner and hopefully my husband will work and take care of the house and then I'm just going to stay home and take care of the kids. Well, it's not fucking like that anymore. And I don't even know if it necessarily was then, but that was what I was exposed to growing up and what I would see on television shows, what I would see in any sort of media. I'd open up a magazine and those were the things that I wanted, like I was raised to think like, oh, I'm just gonna go home and everything's gonna be okay. And, and my significant other is going to protect me. And while I'm, in the kitchen barefoot and pregnant cooking a casserole. Well, what the fuck happens when the bad guy comes in and there's no fucking husband, there's
Yeah.
no significant other, to protect me at whatever time, or I'm in my car. We're so conditioned to see that life is supposed to be a different way. And if some big scary man, tells us to go and do the job, then that's what we're supposed to fucking do. The bigger the person, the louder the bark. We see it all the time with so many different things. We're told to stand down, even in school. This might piss some people off, but it drives me nuts. But if you hit somebody back in self defense, you get in trouble too for defending
Yeah.
yourself and protecting your body. And I'm not okay with that. I've told my son, if that ever happens, you need to defend yourself and you're not going to get in trouble at home and I will deal with them. His father will deal with them. I'll deal with them, whatever it is. Nowadays, for the most part, people as a whole, like we're taught to stand down and not protect ourselves because of whatever it may be. But we have to honor ourselves. We have to protect ourselves and those that are in our care. Sometimes that means that some asshole like is robbing you. You might have to fucking pepper spray him, or you might have to pull out a knife in order to defend yourself.
Do you have a difference in philosophy? Your possessions aren't worth your life, so don't fight back.
I actually agree to that. I'm a big fan of if you can avoid the situation, then avoid it. It's not worth it. My possessions, yeah, they are important, but so am I, and so am I to my family and my friends and everybody else. What should I do in this situation? Get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Like get the fuck out of there. It's not worth it. Like it's not worth it. Cross the street, walk down the road, go a couple blocks around if you think somebody's following you, go to the police. And then some people are not a big fan of that answer, but if you are in fear of a stalker or anybody of that nature, documenting things and making sure that there are proper measures taken. I want to say there's so many people who like have that reaction where like, no, I'm going to win this fight. I've trained in this, that, and the other thing for
Yeah.
however many years. Well, you know what? That person might be on fucking crack and they don't give a shit. And they might actually be immune to that pepper gel because they're on fucking crack. Or they might, you might just have a bad fucking day and fall down and they got you all for your fucking purse. I mean, and the purse is important. It's hard to get those things, replaced, but it's even you're not replaceable. Material possessions come and go. Your person, yourself, do not. Once you're dead, you're dead. You're done.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you actually. And So I haven't actually been confronted aggressively before. It seems like when I've been in sketchy scenarios, they're always trying to talk me into something. So I've been able to like talk myself out. But yeah, I don't know what I would do, to be honest. And that's kind of sad to say. Like when I teach, I obviously teach, the correct answer of like, if your stuff is not worth your life. But part of the reason why I teach also is because of stuff that happened in the Asian community, like the attacks in the Asian community during COVID, and how like that just it like made my blood boil to see, elders being abused, being like pushed around, and some of the stores were getting robbed because the store owner happened to be Asian or the clerk happened to be Asian. Um, and and it's hard for me, like I struggle with like if I was in that scenario and had an opportunity to do something, what exactly would I do? Like would I do something nonviolent, or would I like do something that I teach not to do? like
Right.
you know
Yeah. Like what, don't be the hero or whatever. Well, sometimes like that's the other side of the coin though, Alice, for me is sometimes if you're going to be the hero, you have to understand that you might not be fucking going home. And that's if
yeah,
you're okay with that and you're coming to terms with that and you are throwing in a Hail Mary to go and potentially save other people, then that happens too. Those are situations. You got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them, I guess. It's like
yeah.
you got to accept that, you got to accept the consequences and act fast when that comes. But
I think it's hard because, like, having been in those in sketchy situations before, like I've definitely appreciated when people did step in and sort of add more variables to the equation. I definitely appreciated that, and I feel like it would like other people obviously would probably appreciate that when they're on the disadvantage. I can definitely see from a legal perspective and the perspective of like, well, I also have people who depend on me too. Like I can't take my life that lightly. So I don't know. I think
yeah,
about that a lot.
well, it's like, and it's interesting. Like in hindsight, I think about this too. I was always that friend that, say, I was at a dance club or a nightclub, and some guy came up and started grinding. Say he's grinding against me. I'm good. Get the fuck away. Leave me the fuck alone. That's one thing. But if it was one of my friends, they just kind of look over at, a lot of them would just look over at me and bless their hearts. I'm just saying, and then they just kind of be like, I don't know what to do. He's not getting off of me, and I don't want to push him away. I don't know how to handle this. And I was always that one that walked over and said, "Hey, bud, she doesn't want to dance with you. It's not happening." And if they wanted to, I would always look and be like, "You going? Is this good?" They'd be like, no, no. And I'd be like, "All right, peace out, dude." And then you get accused of so many different things, and then now I put myself in a situation. I've been in situations where then I've been attacked because of that from other men, and
Yeah.
had to, and then it would turn into, some sort of altercation, all because, I thought I was being the good friend of going over and, being like, "Hey, bud, get out of there. She's not into it." And then, going on and trying to grind. And then she's not saying no and not walking away, but not feeling empowered to where she can say no and walk away, and I don't know what that is, right? That goes back to what we were saying. So it's just like, do I continue to try and make sure my friend is safe at that time? Or do I walk away and avoid potential conflict?
What is your relationship with your friend after that happens? Like,
Like there were times, there was always like, "Thank you." And if something does happen, then I would be that person to kind of guide things along and make sure things didn't get worse for my friend, right?
I was thinking about like all like some of the
Part.
times when I've been out with like some of my female friends, and they've said in the past, um, like that they always felt safe with me, and it was almost like because I'm a tomboy, that I'm like the female version of the man in the group. like,
Yeah,
so,
yeah, same. And it's interesting, the older I get and the more deeper I get into this, lifestyle of training in, martial arts, combatives, all that, I meet so many like amazing people that I'm surrounded by women who are in the same spot, right?
Mhm.
Like you being that role in your friend group, me being that role in a friend group, and I'm meeting more and more women like that, and it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And that's dudes too. Like, I mean, I have a lot of guy friends. I actually have more guy friends than I do, like chick friends, and that's fine. And it's just like it's the same thing, like I don't know, it's pretty cool. I like having, a circle of people around me who are confident, and they're those people that you want on your apocalypse team. I would have you on my apocalypse team. You'd,
Yes.
you'd be on my apocalypse team for sure.
We
So,
would totally survive and we would thrive.
it's definitely one of those things, and it's been a pretty cool journey, and I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to more. I'm looking forward to more of it. I want to learn all the chokes. I want to learn all the joint locks.